Introduction to the Holocaust. The Holocaust was the systematic, state-sponsored persecution and murder of 6 million Jews by the Nazi regime and its allies and collaborators. Holocaust is a word of Greek origin meaning sacrifice by fire. The Nazis, who came to power in Germany in January 1933, believed that Germans were racially superior and that the Jews, deemed inferior, were an alien threat to the so-called German racial community. During the Nazi era, German authorities also targeted other groups because of their perceived racial and biological inferiority: Roma, Gypsies, people with disabilities, some of the Slavic peoples, Poles, Russians, and others, Soviet prisoners of war, and black people. Other groups were persecuted on political, ideological, and behavioral grounds, among them communists, socialists, Jehovah's Witnesses, and homosexuals. What was the Holocaust? In 1933, the Jewish population of Europe stood at over 9 million. Most European Jews lived in countries that Nazi Germany would occupy or influence during World War II. By the end of the war in 1945, the Germans and their allies and collaborators killed nearly 2 out of every 3 European Jews as part of the final solution. The Nazis considered Jews to be the inferior race that posed the deadliest menace to the German Volk. Soon after they came to power, the Nazis adopted measures to exclude Jews from German economic, social and cultural life and to pressure them to immigrate. World War II provided Nazi officials with the opportunity to pursue a comprehensive, final solution to the Jewish question: the murder of all the Jews in Europe. While Jews were the priority target of Nazi racism, other groups within Germany were persecuted for racial reasons, including Roma. View this term in the glossary, then commonly called Gypsies, Afro-Germans, and people with mental or physical disabilities. By the end of the war, the Germans and their Axis partners murdered between 250,000 and 500,000 Roma. And between 1939 and 1945, they murdered at least 250,000 mentally or physically disabled patients, mainly German and living in institutions, in the so-called euthanasia program. As Nazi tyranny spread across Europe, the Germans and their collaborators persecuted and murdered millions of other people seen as biologically inferior or dangerous. Approximately 3.3 million Soviet prisoners of war were murdered or died of starvation, disease, neglect, or brutal treatment. The Germans shot tens of thousands of non-Jewish members of the Polish intelligentsia, murdered the inhabitants of hundreds of villages in pacification raids in Poland and the Soviet Union, and deported millions of Polish and Soviet civilians to perform forced labor under conditions that caused many to die. From the earliest years of the Nazi regime, German authorities persecuted homosexuals and other Germans whose behavior did not conform to prescribed social norms, such as beggars, alcoholics, and prostitutes, incarcerating tens of thousands of them in prisons and concentration camps. German police officials similarly persecuted tens of thousands of Germans viewed as political opponents, including communists, socialists, Freemasons, and trade unionists, and religious dissidents, such as Jehovah's Witnesses. Many of these individuals died as a result of maltreatment and murder.